So welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. The concept of these interviews is to be able to welcome leaders in different industries. And today we have the honor and pleasure to have Mr. Braglia together with us. Thank you very much for joining us. The concept of today is discussing around the innovation and how technology is transforming the pharma industry, but also at the same time what is going on in terms of COVID and how technology could help out. Thank you very much for your time. Would you be so very much kind to present yourself and your company?
Thanks for inviting me. I am an entrepreneur, a pharma entrepreneur, representing the third generation of my family into the healthcare business, which is Helsinn. Helsinn is a private company with 45 years of experience in developing and taking new drug to the market, mainly focusing on oncology and cancer supportive care, which means the management of side effects of cancer and chemotherapy. We are present with a headquarters in Switzerland, but also present in the United States, China, and Europe. We have a model of business which is mainly licensed, means that we sell directly only in China and in US, but all the other countries we have a distributor that promote and sell our product, and we cover about 190 countries worldwide.
Thank you very much. So today we're going to go for a first session where we have a Q&A, and then for all the people that are now connected, thank you very much for joining us. There will be the opportunity to share directly questions to you. So when we met the very first beginning in order to arrange this conversation, it was really in the middle of COVID. But you say that from your sector specifically and your company, you actually managed quite well because you are diversified in different industries. But how has COVID impacted on your day-by-day business now and what you see for the future?
First of all, we had a subsidiary. We have a subsidiary in China. So means that we have been affected in China before other areas. So we take experience from our China situation and lockdown there. So we decided to lock down our offices about 2 weeks before the authority decided to say so. So we went smart working. We remote activity. We have already. Everybody in the office has his own portable device, so we were able to go remote quite fast and put everybody working in different projects from home. That's applied, of course, to offices. In terms of the plants, both chemical and pharmaceutical production, we start working in shift with non-contaminated groups, checking every day by doctors. And so far, touching wood, we have been not affected with all this protection, which of course include mask and all the other protection which then are being used by everybody. And of course, for us, being a strategic company and producing oncology drug, we have to be open and to maintain the supply channel all over the world. So it was a tough period to working less people to manage that, but all with the remote activity was possible to do that. And I have to thank my team and especially the task force that we put in place that monitor the situation and also continually interact with our people. And today, thanks to also to this technology and communication, we are able to do video call up to 60, 70 people if we need it, and interact on a daily basis in small groups, project by project.
I mean, we've been talking about smart working for many years, many industries. Also, I think in the pharma industry has been quite a topic recently. How do you think this COVID situation has impacted culturally the organization of your company? Do you see that there will be some changes after when we will be able theoretically to come back to work as normal?
Yeah, in fact, the pharma industry has been quite a conservative industry for quite a long time. We were not really open to new technologies. Of course, we have been invested a lot in innovation, but mainly innovation in terms of research of new product, but not really on the way of doing business with new technologies. And this you see because there are new players like Googles and Apples and others that are coming into the game, trying to disrupt our way of doing businesses. So I think COVID was a good moment for us in this terrible situation to open our mind and move much more strongly to new technologies and all the remote working. I think that when this situation will be cleared, we will not go back to what it was before, but we will go back to a new normality, which will imply different way of doing meetings, different way of traveling, different way to connect with people and manage project. Even though we have already started before to have intercontinental project management between US, Europe, and China, but I think there is still a lot to go and to improve. And this is also on the management point of view, because it's different if you manage people physically and you see them on a daily times, and one thing is to manage them remotely. So leadership will evolve. We are also working in doing new training, because you have to train management in a different way, how to control, how to give KPI points to refer to that. So it's a totally different situation that will take some time to take it, but I think we will go to a new normality, which at the end will also have some advantages.
Yeah, last time when we were preparing for this interview, you really opened my mind. You know, I'm a tech guy. I'm not into the pharma sector, and as soon as you were starting speaking, how much technology could be fitting in different area of the value chain of the pharma industry was really fascinating. So one thing that I read, for example, on many articles is many are talking about Google Doctor and how much people, especially with terrible diseases, are actually getting more and more informed, or they get more and more informed thanks to digital. But at the same time, I also believe that maybe this is not all the proper knowledge they should get, which is the trade-off between the accessibility of knowledge and information for patient, but also the risk of being misinformed now.
Yeah, this is a great question, because patients today, like every people, are more connected, and as soon as, especially in the illness that we are treating, cancer, as soon as you have a diagnosis of cancer, what you do, you go back to Google and you digit that, and you try to know as much as possible about your illness. The problem is to have good information, accessible information, and knowing what to do next. So it's complicated, but there are ways to do that. I have already invested as an investor few years ago in two activities which I think are very interesting, because are based on one side in telemedicine and artificial intelligence. One of that is Longevity, which is a US-based company that monitor the people since they are healthy people. So how you can test yourselves about your microbiome in the intestine, how you can monitor your exercise, your activities, and then based on that, you have an outcomes. And then if it's just a normal way of life, like losing weight or be more fit, there are food supplements, there are ways to do it. If there is a pathology, then you are referred to an online doctor for a first comments, and then of course you can go to your doctor to have more information. And this is one way. The other way is another company that I invested that also support the patient's activities, which is LifeBulb. And LifeBulb is mainly based on supported chronic patients. How chronic patients with terrible disease of different kinds, including cancer, but also you can imagine diabetes and others, how they can be supported, because it's not just a question of dealing with your doctor, or maybe, but what is important is meeting other patients and sharing the information and experience of your illness and the illness of somebody like you that have the same illness, and having more information. So that's our all activities, companies, and technologies that will definitely help patients to be more informed, and where, of course, a pharma company are working with these companies to have access to patients, because as you know, pharma company are not direct contact to patients, should be always through patients association, company that are allowed to do so, or physician. But the way to go them remotely is very important, especially in rare diseases where you have to pick really the patients are very spread over around the world. So this technology will definitely help and will definitely change the way how we are treating today our patients.
But it's quite funny that you mentioned about the technology and the patient's reaction and medical. I just had a call with my mom the other day. She was getting overexcited because my dad, 84 years old, was actually receiving one medical treatment to the doctor through an iPhone. And I think this is, in a way, probably one of the very few positive side of COVID that we are experiencing, because also culturally older people are experiencing e-commerce, but are experiencing also new ways to deal with their doctors. Probably it's something that will change also from a patent level for the future, to accept more digital as an enabler.
Yeah, I think that the word that we see today will be definitely change. We will definitely have, especially for chronic diseases, why we should go on a monthly basis to a pharmacy to pick up our drugs. We should receive at home. Monitoring for chronic patients can be remotely. There is a lot of new medical patients remotely. And so all these technologies are available. Also, there are already apps that can screen if you have taken your pill or not. So for older patients that can forget if you take the pill or not, there is already technologies. There is technology like an app that you can monitor your skin to see if you have skin problems, and making photographs and go to a big database with artificial intelligence that screen if you have a melanoma or not, and then of course say refer to your doctor for a further visit, or just is just a normal situation. So there are a lot of technologies that will help our life in terms of patients, but also will help, I will see, government to have a more transparent world, and because the government at the end will be very interested in having serious and clear outcomes of a treatment. So to monitor if a treatment really works, and if it works, you can pay for it. If it's not working, why you should have paid for that? So will be definitely a way to monitor through big data, and there is already a lot of activities behind that. There is the US Association of Oncology has created what is called CancerLink, which is the biggest database for cancer patients' data, where you can really go there and see if a patient's like you, same age, same sex, same illness, what has been treated in similar cases in the past. And so it doesn't go just from one doctor prescription, but having more data to support a doctor decision in that sense. So that is always things that will evolve and changing the paradigm that we see today.
So I'm really fascinated talking with you, because every time you mention something, you explore an area where technology is transforming or is enabling new services, which is, I mean, really fascinating to know that also in the pharma sector, technology is contributing in a way or another. Of course, as we said at the beginning, as there is a mix between contributing and supporting and misinforming, or there is, of course, a very special situation here. Okay, we talk a bit about the patient, but maybe let's also talk about how technology can help and improve the development of the products. Where do you see things going on here?
Yeah, there are already a lot of technology supporting initial screening of drugs. We are moving more and more to personalized medicine based on patients' outcomes. We have invested in a company that based exactly on results of previous patients' antibodies, and then you can mimic these into new antibodies that can make a treatment. So data of previous patients, you can develop a new drug. So that's our all things that are happening at the moment, as well as in the diagnostic areas where you can really screen and identify for surgeon that have to do a surgical procedure the real area of the cancer type. So there are new technologies that allow to identify exactly cell by cell where the cancer is, and so you are not to take away too more or too less of the cancer tissue, but you can really go very, very detailed and very, very specialized on that sense. So there are all these kind of technologies and companies that are developing and will impact the world in the next few years to come.
I mean, I'm very curious on. I guess that in your company there are very many managers, I guess, very experienced and very specialized, which they probably have a background that is not necessarily technology, I assume, or at least I guess in the production areas. But how can you, as a company, be so much aware of what is going on outside in terms of technology and try to bond the two industry, technology and pharma? So what is your model for bringing innovation into your services and your company?
Well, of course, we have our core business, which is develop new drugs in oncology, and this we have our team of research with early stage and preclinical activities and more advanced technologies. But also, I started 4 years ago an investment fund in early stage technology, exactly to have a financial arms to go and help early stage companies that have initial ideas in the pharma oncology sector that could be a great idea of the future that for us as a pharma company is too early, but as an investor could be a good moment to get in and to know more about it. So this fund, we have invested in medical devices, in the diagnostics, and of course therapeutics. And we are looking also of a digital area where we have seen a lot of opportunities. Although the digital healthcare, it's very interesting, but we have to understand more deeply how that is a service to industry, and this definitely is, or is a real investment by itself, and where we'll take a return to that. So if we invest in a company of digital health, definitely is a great services. If you have a great product, fantastic to support the pharma industry, the hospital, the patients, is a great service. How that is a real investment that will produce return on investment and bottom line, this is quite difficult to evaluate still, and there are only few cases that have done that so far.
Is there a way where you're mixing the people in your company and the investment that you're made? Is there any process to match them together, or either in the selecting phase or post mentoring phase?
Well, we of course we have different training of people inside our organization. We have, of course, a chief technology officer that manage all the processes. And in this period of time, we have, of course, working remotely. We are now planning not just to have typical remote support like a digital signature, video call, etc., but the big task now is to redesign completely all our processes. The way we are works until last year will be totally transformed, and so the digital impact and the Chief Technology Officer, together with the rest of the team, will redesign all the processes and procedure, taking in consideration also a very important part for us, which of course is the quality, the managing of the quality, because we are producing pharmaceutical drugs, but also the compliance with the rules, which are very important, the compliance of how you behave as a pharma company, but also in the respect of different rules, including the privacy. If you work with patients and you work with digital, your privacy is a key aspect, and is always a trade-off how you want to have data with the patients, interact with them, and have a privacy and a barrier to protect that. There are ways, and of course there is things how to do it, but it's very careful to be done. So when you look to a new startup, one of the things that you have to look is how they put these processes, this compliance, and this privacy issue in place, and how they manage that, because could be a big issue later on if it's not done properly.
I understand. I guess that means also that the entry level of investment is not very cheap, I would assume.
If you want to do the things properly, yes. Maybe you can have a great idea, but then you have to move to us. You need to have some external support to monitor all these kind of things. If not, you will have later really serious legal problem, especially if you work in countries like US.
Understand. So we've been talking about patient, we've been talking about the development of product, the models of innovation, but of course, I guess all the community of the medical and the doctors play a huge role, of course, into the relation between the patent and the pharma industry. What is happening in terms of innovation and technology in the relation of, for example, of medical detailing or relation of co-creation, co-production with the inputs of the doctors? So what's going on there?
Yeah, I think that when, of course, today everybody is focused on COVID-19, so the emergency is there, doctors are focused on that. They are not really focusing on anything else, and it's, of course, understandable. When the situation will be over or reduced, the risk, we will go back to a new way to contact it. So, of course, we have already put in place systems like telecall, video call, all the system of connection with the doctors, WebEx, or things like that, seminars to inform them, and the training to doctor will be different. And even congresses are going digital. If you think that the biggest worldwide congress on oncology, which takes about 45,000 doctors to Chicago every year at the end of this month, has been canceled and will go digital with all the information, and will be parallel section with information on digital. It's a big revolution. That what means for the future, that if we go back to normality, we will have a congress in person? Yes, but will be the same as before? Probably not. So these things will change, and the way how companies, doctors, organizations that do events will reshape that, definitely will be. And there is way to have a fantastic training online, fantastic data presentation online, exchange of opinion online, with an advantage. You don't lose time on traveling, you don't have expenses of traveling, and you don't lose, and you are focused when you do something like that. Like an interview of today, online is a specific time frame. If you do on person and you discuss, it takes maybe double the time or even more.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to say to all the participants that if you start working on ideas for questions, is coming up your turn. So thank you very much, by the way, for joining so numerous. So please help me out starting thinking on questions to post to Mr. Braglia. On the other side, I just wanted to have a couple of questions from my side. One more generically, what do you see is the impact of COVID on the pharma industry in general? We know that there are industries like fashion, unfortunately, that are deeply affected in a negative sense, and unfortunately travel, for example, is a huge problem. What is specifically your expectation for the pharma industry?
That is very general and depending. I mean, we will have companies that have established products which are first emergency or first necessity, that will not be impacted at all. They will continue to sell their own drugs. And then, of course, for all new products will be more complicated, because to present it for the first time, promote it, so it will be more complicated to assess right now. And so that will take more time, and will be definitely a delay in the launching of new product and new technologies and new therapies. On the other side, also for development, we will potentially have some delay, maybe innovation product in the space of course, treatment for pandemic product will be speed up, but all the other developments in terms of areas, even if with oncology, some of them will be reduced in terms of access to clinical trials, because patients will be delayed in going to clinical approach and clinical treatments, and doctor will be focused more on other priorities and less on new clinical trials. So we will see a delay on new data coming out and new approval in the long term. But this depends a lot from product to product. We have one product which is in phase 3 clinical trial that will be delayed a few quarters, and we have another product that has been accepted by the FDA, which probably will start earlier than we expected before. So depend a lot on cases by cases. Generally thinking, I will say that the pharma industry will suffer, of course, but not as much as other industry like fashion or tourism or airlines companies.
Clear. And maybe being a leader and an entrepreneur of a well-established companies, what is, in your opinion, the role of governments, and especially thinking to Switzerland or Ticino right now? I mean, for helping out businesses, which focus first, but also strategically, we need to plan the relaunch of an economy for sure, especially thinking about where we are. Netcom and Helsinn position in Ticino. What do you expect they should think about and start working on?
First of all, I would like to say that I'm proud to be Swiss, and thanking our cantonal government and our federal government, because I think they did very well during this emergency. They take the good decision. They took a good decision in terms of medical support, and also thanks to all the Swiss doctor and foreign doctor that work in our hospital, because they did a great job on that. But I think the government did a good job in emergency in terms of healthcare protection and protection of all the citizens, but also they act very, very fast in supporting the economy, the way of reduce labor and compensation for that. Also the way that the banks were able to give loans with zero interest from the government support. All of that, I think, was very, very well done in very fast way, comparing to other countries which they are still now waiting for the support. So we have to say thanks to that. Of course, this was the emergency part of that. We have to think about the future. And what I'm more concerned is about the small activities, the individual activity, what you call the one-to-one, or that from the hairdresser to the small bars, small restaurants, small shops, which are mainly managed by family or individual, and this are very important for our economy. We cannot just think about big companies or medium-sized companies. We have to think about this reality, because these are the really basic of our system. So I think that what we have to do as Swiss citizen, we have to support them. So we will suggest that we have to buy Swiss. We have to spend holiday in Switzerland. We have to go out to eat in a restaurant in Switzerland, and avoid to go somewhere else and helping our economy and our local things. In terms of government, of course, there will be way of trying to help in paying the social contribution. That could be definitely a way. Should be also rewarding for people that in activities that will not close and will not fire people, but maintain their own employees. So this kind of preferential status should be put in place for the activities that will hire or will maintain their employees. And I will suggest also that it's quite important to have also some long-term help and contribution to areas and activities that can hire more people in the future. So if the technology and IT area will hire more people, probably this should be supported in different ways, tax-wise or contribution-wise, in order to create more jobs, because we will see a shift in the future to some industry and some activities to other activities. And also, I think it's very important to to be open to new ideas. I saw a lot of small restaurants that start doing catering, other that they decide to do home boxes with food, and so on and so forth. And many activities in Ticino, which they don't know what was e-commerce before, they create his own commerce. So there are ways to create new idea to survive to these things. But the government should help, should be there, and we should create a support to the one that will fight for that and want to fight to remaining alive and not firing people in their own activities.
Thank you very much. So it's now time for our audience. If you want to pose any questions to Mr. Braglia, I'm receiving them. So feel free to pose us some questions. Maybe if you want to start, not being shy, that's appreciated. Is there anyone that wants to start? So one I think you partially replied, but the very first question comes and say, do you have a chief digital officer, and which is your digital strategy as a company?
Yes, we have, of course, a chief technology officer that run the team both of managing the hardware, because it's also important to manage the hardware, because we forgot about all of that. If we think that is always, the internet, but we need the hardware to work. We just checked that before this interview, that one computer was not working, the other yes. So that hardware is important to support, and we have not to forget that. But also new implementation of a lot of new things. We are now developing a couple of new apps to support our patients in different areas of our products. We are developing new processes, as I mentioned. We are putting all the things like digital signature, which is already obvious. Of course, everybody has a portable PC to work from home. Also, because of what is important, the second phase, so going back to the new normality, as I call it, will be done by phases. At Helsinn, we are planning about 4 or 5 waves of going back to work, so will be not everybody at once. To avoid that, there will be an additional risk. And so the smart working will continue for quite a while. And in the new normality, the home office will remain. And the chief technology officer will have a lot of work. And so we would probably plan to have more people in this area of digital health, but also digital support to our ongoing processes.
And referring to the question before that, it has been mentioned about Google and what is happening in misinforming patient. Serge is asking, do you have a strategy to produce content and share content which is highly qualified and professional and scientific with doctors and patients at the same time?
Yeah, of course. We have, for what is concerned our products, we have our, of course, resources, which is our website for each product. So we have app for each product, which have high quality and check contents. And then we always refer to the association of clinicians in the different countries, an association that can guarantee the quality of information. In terms of new product development, I think that there is each country has its own agency, like the Swiss Medic or FDA or EMA, that have the real database and what is allowed to go on. In this moment of COVID-19, you have seen a lot of since social media, use this drug, use this combination, use these things. But then what is important is to have clinical data. So what is really important is to go to the agency database and looking if this drug, if these clinical trials really exist, or is just a fake news or misleading information.
Then we have two similar questions, but different in a way. One is about, you say that you have many different companies around the world. And Andrea is asking, what do you think about the idea of having more production in our homeland? And what is going to be your relation with the other companies around the world for the future?
First of all, our production is based in Ticino. So we have one of the production that is based in Ticino. The second one is based in Ireland. So definitely we are Europe-based based in terms of production. Of course, we imported some of the raw material and basic components from outside. We are looking for different alternatives. Of course, some of these raw materials come from China, where we have a joint venture agreement with a company, but we are also seeing different alternatives to reduce this risk. Fortunately enough, being a family company, we have been quite good in having a long-term stocks of 6 months, so we didn't have any problem in supply chain. Probably as a public company, you cannot have a lot of these big stocks, and so probably we're running more problems. But generally speaking, we are Swiss-based. The production is here in Switzerland, and we trying to produce from here and exporting from here. Also because we do high quality products and not low marginal, small quality product.
Generally speaking, this is my integration. What do you think about for other industries or other entrepreneurs? Do you think they will start thinking to remove back part of their production, even in other industry? I mean, could be fashion, could be other.
I think that we should have some production back to Europe, generally speaking. Then if it's Switzerland, Italy, or France, but I think around the year it's much more important than just to have, in a very far away, because it could become a real issue. And local production for certain things could be worth. And especially for emergency product, we should have our own strategic production. We see the problem with mask protection and other things that are mainly produced outside, and then that should not work. I mean, now we have expenditure for military or other things for strategic decision. We should have that also. Pandemic is something that is new, but will not go away. So we should be prepared, like we are prepared for an earthquake or a flood or anything like that.
You just mentioned pandemic. Luca here asked, when do you expect, or when do you think you believe the pandemic could get solved and we can really get back to our normal life? What is your time frame?
Well, that is difficult to say. Depend of a lot of things. My personal view is that we will go back to a new normality, which will not be exactly as before, even if we will have treatment, or even if we will have a vaccine. Because a vaccines is quite complicated to produce, especially in large scale, like we are thinking, because we are thinking about the billions of potential dose. And then, of course, we have to convince people to take these vaccines. And this is not compulsory. So the virus or similar virus will be around. So what I think is that we are going back to a new normality, which will be a different way of working, which we will face that. But technically, my feeling is we will have 2020 still in this situation, and hopefully by first quarter 2021 we will move to a better situation.
A better situation means that we are already in a phase that we can rethink to be in the normal phase, or it will be something that goes on also fully next.
That's depend a lot of the data. We have to monitor the data from the new cases that are coming out. We are seeing now, for instance, in Ticino and in Switzerland, generally speaking, the things are improving. But at a certain point, we will have to reopen the border. And we know that in Nordic Europe, in US, in other countries, the situation is still worse. And there are areas where we don't know exactly how to monitor the situation, like Africa, where I'm trying to support a lot of a situation there, because as a foundation, I built 12 schools in different countries of Africa. And now there we have to send, to build there, to be manufacturing there in the school, mask and detergent, and teaching them how to clean the hands. But there are cases which we cannot demonstrate because there is no support to make the analysis. So we don't know how many cases are around there and how much that could spread the moment that people starting traveling again, or Europeans starting going on holidays again in these countries. So it's difficult to say. We have to monitor the situation. As the present, we have a plan to go normality, the new normality, in late fall.
Maybe before moving to the next question, we are really receiving a lot of inputs, but I know about your foundation. Maybe it's a good opportunity just to mention what you do, but especially if there is a way to contribute to what you're doing. Because I know it, but I guess most of the people are here connected.
Well, yes, I started about 12 years ago, this foundation, which is called Nuovo Fiore in Africa, New Flower in Africa. And we are building a school and educational programs for children in different countries of Africa, like Ethiopia, South Sudan, Congo, Gabon, etc. And we have already a running school there, we have more than 15,000 students. Of course, some of the schools today are closed, like in Switzerland. And the real issue there is that when the things are closed and closed down, then the economy also go bad, and they have a problem not just about the virus and the cleaning themselves and teaching them how to clean themselves and washing hands and so on, but also we have problems about the problem of getting food and normal activities, which fortunately enough we don't have in our country. So we have created a special program for this school and for these students and for their family, and we have started supplying them support where they can produce locally, because in some of these schools we have what is called the fashion business, which means mainly producing small clothes and producing locally, teaching the students how to produce more clothes and other things. And so we transform that in producing masks that can be, which will, by the way, with very nice colors and different things like the Africa used to. But we are trying to protect them in the way that we can. So we have now implemented free programs in Ethiopia and in Sudan, and hopefully that will help to reduce the risk there.
Just to say, how could someone, if it is possible, to contribute? Like,
well, you can go to the website of www.nuovofioreinafrica.org. And there is all the information about our activities and, of course, our donation link.
So now I'm get back to we are receiving like 20 questions every 30 seconds. So there's really a big dynamic here going on. Thank you, everybody. It's my challenge to pick them up. There is one where he says, that's Luca. You talk about the positioning of Switzerland, and also that you're proud to be a Swiss entrepreneur. Do you think this image will, in a way or another, contribute to attract more companies from abroad in the future?
I am a strong believer of that. I was the head of a young entrepreneur about 20 years ago, and from that moment on, I always suggest that we have to attract more companies in Switzerland and in Ticino, especially in this moment where we have shown that we are more efficient, more fast in reacting. We can definitely attract more new entrepreneurs. Of course, to do so, we have to be proactive. Entrepreneur, when they move from one country to the other, or they want to create a new business in a new country like Switzerland, they need to have not just a nice country with a good view and panorama, but you should have also basic supports, which means fast decision making, a possibility to have employees in a fast way, tax advantages, and so on and so forth. So what is the typical global conditions behind setting a company? Also because, as you know, there are other countries that are also offering competitive scenarios, and so we have to be more competitive on that sense. But there are opportunities, especially if you look south of from Italy and from France, Spain, where probably this coronavirus situation will create a huge economic crisis. So if you want to move out of that, probably Switzerland could be a good place where to be.
There's a question, I hope I understand it really correctly. It's about the role of pharma industry during COVID, that has received quite a few complaints because they haven't really contributed in supporting and helping out during this crisis. I guess it's more about, I would assume, pricing and collaboration in this situation. How do you see the role of the pharma industry during COVID? What could have done be better in general, or not?
Of course, mistakes have been taken. What I know, because I see different situation, there have been different donation where possible. There were been overworking hours to produce and supply people. There have been the way of, for instance, we transform part of our production to disinfectant available to the local hospital free of charge. So there are ways that has been done in many ways, and not just here in Ticino, but in different parts of Switzerland, to support this situation. Probably they are not publicized, they are not advertised, they are not known, but there are many to my knowledge.
Okay. So I think we're really getting to the end of our discussion. And by the way, we are receiving a lot of people. Thanks for sharing. You are inspiring us. It's very interesting what you said. So again, also from my side, thank you very much for your time. It's always a pleasure, also personally, to have a discussion with you, because of course you see things from a very special perspective, both from the industry, but also from your role and the fact that you are an entrepreneur. So it's really interesting. Is there something that you think we missed or we forgot to talk about around pharma and technology that we should really focus as well, or like we forgot something?
No, I think that we cover almost the points that we scheduled to cover. I think that one thing is important, moving from the physical way of working to the digital way of working, and COVID, of course, pushed in that direction. We have to adapt our way of thinking, our way of leading, and our way of managing people, because will be more complicated, even including some more psychological supports, because people working from home, and I know at least a lot of my people, they love to go back to work, but we have to protect them. So psychological way is also important. Another things which I think is important is about managing the information. The fact that we have social networking is fantastic. I use them, but we have to protect ourselves, and especially the patients and the older people, from fake news or inappropriate news or some conspiracy big news that sometimes are not proven. So I'm not saying that it's not true or not, one or the other, but what I suggest always is to have the pharma scientific approach, or what I call the scientific general approach. Go to the sources, go to the real data. Doesn't trust just the title of news or sharing from Facebook of others. Go really to see the original documents and what the original documents say, because I've seen so many modifications from one original document and the conclusion of a social network that became exactly the opposite. So don't trust the first source, but go more in deep, because things are really happening, and happening because people are behind and are working hard. So the reality is still there, and we have to look for real data and serious data, and not just big titles on social network.
So really, I mean, as soon as we say that we are getting to the end, we are receiving other 10 questions. So again, we have a community unbelievably engaged. But again, thank you very much for your time. I'm sure we will have the opportunity to meet up again. And also thanks for your role in inspiring also a lot of other entrepreneurs in what you're doing for your philanthropic activity.
Thank you, Carlo, for this interview and the opportunity, and keep in touch. Maybe in the future also physically and not just virtually.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.